You never think it'll happen to you. 1 second, there was nothing but the calm, dark water of the Amazon. The next, a monster from the old legends was right there, and I was directly in its path. You've heard the stories, you've seen the movies, but nothing, and I mean nothing, can prepare you for the real thing. The sheer power, the impossible size, the feeling of being completely and utterly insignificant. What do you do when you're alone, days from anyone, and you come face to face with the true queen of the jungle? It had all started 3 days earlier. I was alone, paddling deeper into the jungle than I'd ever gone before. My whole world had shrunk down to my dugout canoe, just a sliver of wood gliding through a maze of black water and endless green. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of damp earth and blooming orchids, a perfume so rich you could practically taste it. My goal was simple, even if it was a little ambitious, to chart a remote tributary of the Amazon that, according to the maps, just sort of stopped. I wanted to see that nothingness for myself. And for 72 hours, it was paradise. Monkeys chattered from the canopy high above, their calls echoing through the cathedral of trees. Bright blue morpho butterflies flashed past me. The river was a perfect mirror of the sky, and sometimes it felt like I was paddling straight through the clouds. Being this isolated is a strange feeling. There's a deep peace that comes with knowing you're the only person for miles, like you're plugged directly into the planet's heartbeat. But there's also this low-level hum of vulnerability. Every splash, every rustle in the leaves is a reminder that you are not at the top of the food chain here. You're just a soft, slow-moving visitor. I'd made camp on a little sandy bank the second night, just listening to the rainforest come alive. The sounds are a wall of noise at first, insects, frogs, and a dozen other things you can't name. But you learn its rhythm, the jungle's baseline, and you learn that when that rhythm changes, you'd better pay attention. On day 3, the river narrowed. The current slowed down, the water got darker, almost oily. The trees closed in overhead, weaving a thick roof that plunged the river into a constant twilight. This was it. This was where the wildness felt raw. I felt a thrill of discovery, but also a knot of unease in my stomach. The air was still, way too still. The normal jungle chorus had faded to a whisper. It was like the entire forest was holding its breath. It started with a flicker on the water's surface about 50 yards ahead. This wasn't the gentle ring from a fish or the plop of a falling mango. This was a powerful, deliberate swirl that boiled up from the deep and then disappeared, leaving the water like glass. I stopped paddling, my knuckles white on the paddle. Every one of my senses was screaming. I scanned the banks, the water, the overhanging branches. Nothing. Just silence. I tried to convince myself it was a caiman, maybe a big one, diving for cover. They're common here, and while you have to respect them, they're a known quantity. But this movement, it felt heavier. It had a weight to it that spoke of something huge. I waited. A full 5 minutes crawled by. The silence was pressing in. The only sound was the drip, drip, drip of water from my paddle. A mix of curiosity and stubborn pride pushed me forward. I couldn't let a shadow spook me. I paddled slowly, hugging the far bank, my eyes glued to the spot. This was classic Anaconda territory. They are semi-aquatic ambush predators, perfectly at home in the slow, murky waters of forgotten streams just like this one. Their olive-green skin, covered in black circular blotches, is flawless camouflage in the dark water and decaying leaves. They're patient, known to wait motionless for days, even weeks, for the perfect moment. They can lie almost completely submerged, with just the top of their heads showing where their eyes and nostrils are perfectly placed to see and breathe, while the rest of their massive body stays hidden. As my canoe drifted closer, my eye caught it, a shape just under the surface. At first I thought it was a huge, sunken log, But logs don't have patterns. Logs aren't a perfect repeating series of black rosettes on a greenish-brown background. My blood went ice cold. It wasn't a log. It was a snake. And it wasn't just a snake. It was the snake, the one from all the legends. I froze and let the canoe drift. What I was seeing was just one small part of its body, maybe a 5-foot section of a single coil. But the thickness, that's what broke my brain. It was thicker than my thigh. It was thicker than my waist. It was like staring at the muscular limb of some prehistoric animal, and it just kept going, disappearing into the murky water on both ends. No head, no tail, just this impossible midsection of pure, living muscle. My mind was racing, trying to process it. Female green anacondas are giants, much larger than the males. While the absolute maximums are debated, with some reports of snakes over 25 feet and 550 pounds, even a typical large female can easily top 20 feet and weigh hundreds of pounds. By mass, they are the largest snakes in the world. The reticulated python might be longer, but the anaconda is far heavier. They're apex predators, powerful enough to take on capybaras, deer, and even caimans. They don't use venom. They're constrictors. They strike, lock on with rows of sharp, backward-curving teeth, and then they wrap you in their coils. Scientists used to think they just suffocated their prey. We now know it's much faster and more brutal. The immense pressure instantly stops blood from flowing, causing circulatory arrest and killing the victim in seconds. All these facts I'd read in books were now staring me in the face, just feet from my flimsy boat. The oar was quickly being swallowed by a primal gut-twisting fear. This thing wasn't just an animal, it was a force of nature, and I was a fragile speck in its world. What do? Paddle for your life? Try to get a picture? My mind was a civil war between the scientist and the survivalist. But the choice was about to be made for me. Slowly, deliberately, a section of the coil began to rise. Water streamed off its skin, and then, about 20 feet in front of my canoe, the water just exploded. The head that shot out of the water was bigger than my own. It was a solid block of muscle and bone. The eyes weren't fiery red like in the movies. They were cold, black, and unblinking. They were ancient and completely emotionless. I didn't see aggression or curiosity. I saw nothing but absolute indifference. And that was the most terrifying part. I didn't register as a threat, or as food, or even as interesting. I was just in the way. It turned its head slowly, its massive neck flexing. A black, forked tongue flickered out, tasting the air, gathering data on the strange floating log that had drifted into its space. For a second that stretched out for a lifetime, we were face to face. My world shrank to the space between us. I could see the individual scales on its head. I could smell the musky, swampy river on its body. It wasn't an attack. It was something far more casual and 1,000,000 times more dangerous. It simply decided to go from point A to point B, and I happened to be floating in between. A massive coil, a section of its body easily 10 feet long, rose out of the water right next to me. The wave it created was instant and violent. My canoe was thrown upwards, tipping hard to one side as water poured in. I yelled out, a raw, involuntary sound of pure panic, and threw all my weight to the other side, desperately trying not to capsize. This was the real fight, not against the snake, but against gravity, against the water, against the simple physics of its existence. Going into that water, with that animal, was death. Anacondas are masters in the water. They drag their prey under to drown and constrict at the same time. It would be over before I knew what was happening. I jammed my paddle into the water, my arms screaming with adrenaline, and pushed backward with everything I had. The canoe scraped against the rising coil. It felt like running your hand over a wall of solid, moving muscle. The boat stabilized for a half second before another section of its body slid underneath the hull. A sickening, powerful glide I felt right through the floor of the canoe. I could feel its incomprehensible power. It was like a living river inside the river. I didn't stop. I just dug my paddle in and pulled, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't dare look back. I just paddled, putting as much distance as I could between me and the spot where the legend had come to life. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably just 30 seconds, I risked a look over my shoulder. Nothing. The water was flat calm. The snake was gone, as if it had never been there. They can stay submerged for up to 10 minutes, so I knew it was still there, somewhere in that black water. The silence that came back was different now. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, filled with the knowledge of what was watching from the depths. I didn't stop paddling until I was miles away, until the river finally widened and the sun broke through the canopy again. That encounter changed me. It's one thing to know giants exist. It's another thing entirely to have one look you in the eye. What I experienced was incredibly rare. Anacondas aren't aggressive man-eaters. In fact, there isn't a single scientifically verified account of a green anaconda ever eating a human. They're shy, reclusive animals that would rather avoid us. The danger I was in came not from a monster, but from the casual, incidental power of a truly massive animal in its own element. I went into the jungle looking for the wild, and I found it. It taught me a lesson in humility I'll carry with me forever. These creatures aren't monsters. They are vital apex predators that are crucial to the health of the Amazon ecosystem. They are the silent, powerful guardians of the world's last great wildernesses. We're just visitors in their home, and it's a privilege to get even a fleeting glimpse of their magnificent, terrifying reality. They're a reminder that there are still forces on this planet far older and more powerful than we are, and they command our respect. Encounters like these are a powerful reminder of how truly wild our planet still is. If you want to hear more stories from the untamed corners of the globe, think about subscribing to the channel. I'd love to read about your own unforgettable wildlife encounters, so share your story in the comments below. Stay curious and stay respectful.